Hi everyone, this is Ashley with CT Unit Digital. So I'm going to do a tutorial to show you how to use the new backlit arches in backlit arch digital backdrops in Photoshop. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to use them. If you have your original images, I took these in studio. These are a couple of my clients. If the background is like this and it's already all white and you're just editing into a digital backdrop, it's going to be a little bit easier to edit. If you have like some stuff in the background and it's a little bit busier, you're going to have to copy and paste, and it's still pretty easy. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. So first I'll just show the copy and paste method, I guess, just in case you do have to do that. So if I had to do that, I would just go to my quick selection tool and select subject up here at the top or on your contextual taskbar, wherever you want to, or however you want to select your subject. Completely up to you. I'm just going to zoom in real quick and just double check my selection, make sure that it looks pretty good. Oop. And it looks okay. So I can go ahead and duplicate my background and create a layer mask on that. And then I'm going to click on my background layer. I'm going to come over to the digital that I'm using. I'm going to select all, edit, copy, and edit and paste into here. You can always also use the place embedded method. I show that in a lot of my tutorials that are already on my YouTube channel. If you want to go through those, the place embedded method is basically just you can still do it here. You can right click here and convert to a smart object, and then you can right click that and go to replace contents, and that's going to open up your file folder on your computer, and you can select a different digital backdrop to switch between them to see which one you like the most. And now the crop on the digital backdrop is a little bit different than the crop on my client image. I'm just going to stretch it out a little bit for tutorial's sake, but if you wanted to crop down your client image first to fit the same ratio, you could do that. Okay, and now we have her in the image. First, I'm going to click on my client here real quick, and I'm just going to resize her a little bit because she seems a little big within that image. And now if you did this method, you would just have to zoom in and check your the outline of your client here and just clean up the edges if you need to, which they look pretty good in this image. And now I'm going to come up to my layer mask here, and I'm going to use a brush on about 25% opacity, my white brush here, and then I'm just going to brush in just by her feet. I'm just going to brush in the original shadows there, just little by little, because there is some texture in that digital backdrop, but I'm not worried about brushing some of that off as well to kind of get that shadow back in there for her. And you'll lose a little bit of that shadow from the digital backdrop, but that's okay. I would want to, she's a little dark, so I would come over to my adjustments here and create a curves layer and click this right here. That's going to create that clipping mask, so we're only working on the subject and not the digital backdrop. I'm going to bring this up a little bit, just play around with my shadows and my brightness on here. I'm going to click back on this layer and do an exposure adjustment as well, and it already created that clipping mask because I clicked back down here and it's in between those layers, so it's going to automatically create that clipping mask. Bring up the exposure a little bit on her. Okay, sorry, my Photoshop froze for a second. I don't know if it's going to glitch in the video, but it glitched for me, so I had to stop and start recording again. So I need to add some blur to my digital backdrop here. I think I'm actually going to move my client a little bit forward here because I want to have a little bit more blur in the background there. So she's standing seemingly in this image in front of all the pots and the arch. So we want to add blur to all of that. So I'm going to come down to my digital backdrop. I'm just going to go up to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And I'm not going to add a ton. Probably about 4 is good. And then that is just going to create, that's just going to create that depth between my subject and the florals in the back. And that would possibly be for like a 35 if you were shooting it with. You're going to have to play around with, if you wanted to create a lot more blur and bokeh in the back here, you could go to Filter and Camera Raw filter, and after you flattened your image, and use the lens blur tool in there. But this is the copy and paste method, how you would do for like originally for digital backdrops. So I would be done with this one. And now I want to show you, if you have an image that doesn't have anything in the background and is all white like this, it's actually going to be a little bit easier for you to blend. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select all, edit and copy. And I'm going to be using this one, so edit and paste into here. Okay, and then I'm going to resize what I think it's going to be. Okay, and then I'm going to change the blending mode to multiply. So it's going to get rid of all that white. Okay, and now I'm just going to add some adjustment layers here. So I do not have to worry about any of the outside of my image there. It got rid of all the white on there. So I'm going to add a curves layer. I'm going to create that clipping mask so it just applies to her. Bring that up. I'm going to click on my model again. I'm going to go to Filter, Camera Raw, and I'm going to bring up the shadows just a little bit. Okay, I'm actually going to bring the curves down just a tiny bit on her. There we go. I'm going to resize. Okay, and now again, I'm going to add my blur on my background. I don't want to add, I'm going to add like 2.5 on this one, I think. And I would be done with that image completely. The background does look a little bit cooler than her, so I could add a little bit of warmth into my background to blend that a little bit better. That looks a little bit better. So that is another way you can do it if you have a completely white background. But I do want to mention that the shadows, like if you have texture or shadows on the floor at all, you're going to have to brush that back onto the client. So I can't show it very well in this one. So I'm going to come back actually to this image. Do that. And I have this open here. I'm going to show you, I'm going to do it this way, but I'm going to show you how you might have to brush off, because this one has some texture and it has that shadow there. So I'm going to have to brush it off of her legs and her feet. So I'm going to come over to this one, select all, edit, copy, edit and paste. I'm going to change the blending mode to multiply. I'm going to go ahead and resize. And then, as you can see, it is a little bit darker around here, but once I bring up the shadows and everything on her, that will go away. Or it should go away. If it doesn't, I can just brush it off. But I don't have to worry about. There we go. It went away. Okay, so I would be happy with that. But as you can see, if I zoom in, the shadows, since we're on multiplied blending mode, are showing through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all 3 of these layers, hold down Control or Command on your keyboard and click all those 3 layers and duplicate them. And then this layer right here, I'm going to change to normal blending mode. And then I'm going to create a layer mask. Press Control or Command on your Mac if you have it, plus I on your keyboard. That's going to invert that layer. And then I'm going to come over to my brush and use a white brush at 100% opacity. And then you can just brush her leg back in. At this point, it might be easier for you to copy and paste, but if you're liking to not have to worry about the majority of the image and just brush some off of just parts of the image, this still might be a better option to use the multiply blending mode. So as you can see, that's just brushing her original leg back in and getting rid of that texture that shows through because of using the multiply blending mode. Just be careful not to get, obviously not to brush off past her leg, because then you'll have some bright white spots on there, like that. Press X on your keyboard to switch between black and white. That's how it's set up in my Photoshop. If you mess up, and then since this is all, so right here we have to brush off, but any part that's just white behind her is going to be fine. This might show through up here, but it's a black hat, so you can't even see it. Okay, zoom out, and then I would be ready to add my blur and everything to the rest of my image. And that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message. If you are a studio photographer, I would love for you to join my group on Facebook. I will link it in the description. If you would like more free tutorials like this one, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel to be notified when I add more videos.